Hi guys, Mark Wilson, Athletic Venture Advisors. I had a discussion over the weekend and really with any customers or clients that we talk to about the value of data and where there's a disconnect in terms of, you hear about the dollar figures being thrown around for users or the type of data that's collected, and there's really a disparaging difference between the actionable data, which would be your consumer data and anything that can actually be quantified and put into a tangible result, versus the traction data, which is your machine learning, identifying certain patterns and things like that. And I will use some of our own clients in an example for some shameless plugging of them, but there really is two main features of what data you collect, and this would be, say, your identifying patterns and comparison. So AI, machine learning, and we'll use clients NDV performance, is a neurodynamic vision and cognitive training, and then XCO, which is also a performance tracking unit, so wearable hardware, software. And then another client type that we deal with, whether it's current clients that we have, ones that we review, but certainly one that comes to us often, I'll use the daily fantasy, prop bets, which would be your live sports comparison. Companion, I guess, is a better word for it. So, main difference here is going to be who values what. So this sort of performance side of things, so NDV is tracking performance data, medical data, comparative results. So in this case, especially in medical stuff, being that when it's transported it's heavily encrypted, in all likelihood there's no super specific information being tracked. So XCO basically tracks your speed over intervals, whether it's a timing gauge situation or performance, or say a 100-meter track racer, so that speed variance throughout the 100 meters. Obviously that's valuable to who? That's valuable to the athlete, coaches, trainers, and in most cases partnership opportunities where other tracking units would be using that value as a comparative identification strategy. Same with NDV for performance. It's going to be tracking things like how plastic your brain is, cognitive abilities, how coachable you are, as well as the information of how quickly you process things. When medical data is transferred and encrypted, it normally is only going to show, if anything at all, very general details. So myself, all it would show is male between the ages of 35 and 40, 6 foot tall, 195 pounds, sport, basketball, and then the data that these types of things collect. So from a value standpoint, there is very little consumer value, is low, but it's very unique. Unique data, but very little consumer value, especially when it comes to encrypting and things like that, because Coke or someone who has the money to buy consumer data can't do anything with that. It doesn't drive any sort of buying habits or anything like that, and very likely, your opportunities for purchasing data in this space is more likely a partnership with another group. So you're seeing this in the industry of mergers and acquisitions in terms of different types of wearables, GPS technologies. So there's a lot of API integration in this side of the industry. There's a lot of collective data information. There's a lot of partnerships, because the more information and machine learning that could be integrated into a whole holistic program, the more valuable that sort of traction is. So very unique data, but very low likelihood of it being a high value to a consumer standpoint, where your Ubers and things like that would come into play. But being collected only through that type of data. So daily fantasy prop bets, live sports companionship stuff, that is where you can really get into the nitty gritties and details of consumer data, because there is information to be said there. There is, open source opportunities. The email addresses and contact information is more likely available, and obviously secure, but not encrypted like a medical data. So where people get the misconception of data value here is, yes, it is very, very high. Consumer value can be very high. But it's not necessarily unique information. Where you really need to start differentiating within your category is who your target market is, and then you can increase the value of the company's data that they collect. Because in here, you're not collecting a lot of comparative data. Where you can find information is, what sport does someone like, advertisement opportunities that, what has a high uptick, what doesn't. And you can really get down to the nitty gritty of contact information to know exactly what that person likes. Now, where companies, especially startups, get a misconception is this information is not unique in any case. So let's use a football prop bet, daily fantasy as value here. So in daily fantasy, most people know that there's two main players, FanDuel and DraftKings, and they're massive companies, and obviously they have all the information, all the data you could imagine, and that can get down to the point of, football fan, 35 years old, this type of information, this is how active they are on it. So not only that, these two companies also have the same sort of data that Facebook would have or Instagram would have, because, based on the algorithms and information that they have, somebody could tell you football fan 35, their consumer habits, their income level, that's obviously not unique at all. But use 3 examples, 1 client and 2 potential clients for us. One would be Coach Zone. One would be Thrive Fantasy. And then one that we're looking at now is actually FanVest. 3 very different audiences. Coach Zone is a very gamified type of environment, where it's likely your low barrier of entry, not your bettors, your gamblers, your sharks that are looking to make money off it, just someone who's looking to do fun within the game. So there is a unique value to that. Thrive Fantasy is obviously moving into esports, which would be a first of its kind, and that would be a different target market than, say, your FanDuel or DraftKings. If they ever get into that esports market, obviously that would be a different case. So, esports. Very unique market. Gamers and fun versus your big bettors. And then FanVest is a very unique one, and I said this to the owner, high net worth individuals. So FanVest is taking the stock public trading sort of model and integrating sports, so you can actually, almost create a portfolio of athletes, and you're working off of the stock market structure. So you'll likely not get the young, low barrier of entry gaming fun sort of environment. You're probably not getting the esports because they're not into the esports. But then you're also getting the high net worth individuals who understand stock trading and investing and things like that. So three very unique target markets that your big guys and your Facebooks and anyone else who collects, and Google that doesn't collect that data, likely doesn't have. So if you are able to, in a non-unique environment, create a unique niche for yourself, then there can be value. Because otherwise, if it's just another daily fantasy or just another search engine, you're likely going after groups who have much more information. And not only do they have much more information, they have the money and the network to sell that data over and over again. So two very different, very unique stuff over in the medical side of things, but probably low consumer value, but certainly from a machine learning standpoint, very valuable. Your partnership opportunities are higher in this machine learning traction side of things. If you can find a unique data set in the consumer side of things, in the action side of things that people can put a dollar value to, if I can target 100,000 people at a $10 per person value, I know that at a $10 cost of acquisition, if I'm going to profit off of that, then certainly it's valuable to me. So when you are especially early on, make sure that the value that you're putting in the data that you collect follows what happens in the industry that you are, because you're not likely going to get the $10 per user valuation in a machine learning situation, and in all likelihood somebody else has this data and can get it to the consumer buyers cheaper than you can, unless you create a unique skill set and a unique identifier for the action side of things. I hope that helps. I'm certainly no data expert myself. I only play one on LinkedIn, so please feel free to comment, criticize, and bring your own thoughts into this. But from a startup standpoint, early stage companies, make sure you are creating your own unique environment to collect that data, and don't overvalue it yourself. Thanks a lot.